Hi, Mark. Welcome.
Good to be here, Dave.
Great. Hey, Mark, tell us how you got into social media.
Well, it's going to sound odd because there really wasn't a social media when I got into it. Basically, as a recruiter back in the early 90s, many recruiters relied on basically resourcing and relationship building. And the precursor of social media, what have you, was basically a number of websites that were out there and providers like AOL, America Online, etc. And we had to be resourceful, and to find candidates for jobs, what we would typically do is go into the membership list of America Online and reach out to some of these people based on what they did for a living. So when social media actually arrived just a few years later, we were pretty well prepared to understand what social media was and how it could to work to build relationships with friends as well as to increase and improve business.
So how and when, I guess, did you start up your own business?
Officially, I started my business in 2003, and that's when I actually kicked it off. I actually was running two businesses at the time. One was Integrity Consulting Associates, where the ICA comes from in ICA social media, and that was a recruiting company focusing particularly on marketing and sales. And at the same time, since social media was an avocation of mine, I decided to roll into that. And when the economy started to slow down in 2007 or 2008, I started to see that it was a good time to make a break from recruiting after 35 years doing that and move more into the social media arena. And so I've been doing that full time since then.
Let's hold it right there, Mark. We'll be back in a moment. Think about this. Last week we saw that tracking your 401k's performance is a little more than just looking at the beginning and the ending balances on your statement. Now, how exactly do you keep score? How do you know if your return is good or not so good? That's where your benchmark comes in. Your benchmark is the number that we're going to keep score against. What's your benchmark? Well, let's take a step back for a moment. Whether you realize it or not, you chose an asset allocation in your account. That's simply the percentage of your contribution that's going into each investment. We're going to get more into that in the weeks to come. Your benchmark will simply be a weighted average of the index that represents the investments you have. For example, let's make that a little simpler. You may have a mix of funds that are 50% large cap stocks, 25% small cap stocks, and 25% bonds. Your benchmark then might be 50% S&P 500 for the large cap, 25% Russell 2000 for the small cap, and 25% Barclays aggregate for the bond funds. There's an index for just about every investment. By measuring your performance against your benchmark, you get a true picture of how your investments are performing after fees, against how you are allocated. Are your funds performing well, or is it time to take another look at your choices? It will also help you to remember to rebalance your investments from time to time. That's something that we'll get into on another day. If you have any questions about this or any other financial topic, give us a call. We're back. Mark, so you started your business. Now, what kind of clients do you primarily deal with in your business?
Primarily, my clients are small and mid-sized companies. They're either doing B2C, which is business to customers, or B2B, or businesses to businesses.
Right.
Each which requires a different social media marketing, public relations approach.
Okay. So then what, I'm as you know, a newbie, just trying to figure all this stuff out.
Sure.
So what services do you actually provide as part of ICA for your client base?
Well, in all cases, it always starts with a social media audit. And I do that for two reasons. Number one, I'd like to get a handle as to what the company is doing already. I'm coming into something already in progress, and I have to have a good understanding of what they've been doing, where they are, and some goals in terms of where they want to go. Secondly, I feed them back a report, which basically gives them an impression as to what we're going to be doing loosely to get them to attain their goal. And as we build our relationship further, then it becomes more tactical, where we decide particularly what platforms and tools we're going to be using and what content we're going to be putting out there.
Okay, so for companies that may be like us that haven't really done anything other than these videos, you can lay out basically that framework, that roadmap for how they can go from 0 to 60, as it were, on social media in some measured way.
Yeah, I think too many people today get hung up on measurement, and I don't know that it's fair to the folks working in social media. It's more akin to public relations. But public relations has a positive effect for companies. They don't know exactly what the numbers are. And I'm not saying don't measure, because I think there are certain things that can be easily measured.
Right.
But I think sometimes people go a little too deep into it. I think if you're getting more traffic to your website, if you have a good plan and you're able to convert people to whatever business you're in, I think that alone is a good measurement. I think too many people become sort of that word retentive in terms of looking at the small things and missing out on the bigger picture. I think there's a lot to be said for the awareness that social media builds. And I must say the most important thing is that it is a long process. And that goes against business to some degree.
Yes.
Because businesses want it now, and social media has certain steps that you just cannot change. It's just inherent in relationship building. You have to build a relationship with people, and you have to build trust. You have to build integrity, and then maybe they'll do business with you. You can't force it or it won't work.
Well, I can honestly say that everything I've learned about social media, I've actually learned from Mark in probably the last few weeks. And I can attest to what he's saying. It is a process, but in a few short weeks, we are already starting to see some very, very positive results from our actions. So, Mark, people want to get a hold of you.
Well, I have a website. It's www.icanewfriend, ICANEWFRIEND, and my phone number is 732-492-9726. Always available.
Great. Mark, thanks for coming in today.
Thanks for having me.
It was a pleasure, and thank you for watching, and we'll see you next week.